welcome to another episode of Inclusion Talks. A great pleasure to be here again today for our major sponsor, of course, Aussie Home Loans, who deal with anyone in Australia. They've got clients in every state and capital. They do Zoom as well, which is what we do with our podcasts, which are very popular on all the various social media platforms. Areas of expertise include purchasing a property, owner-occupied or investment, building a property portfolio, refinancing, debt consolidation, cash out construction, pre-approvals, first home buyers, equipment loans, car loans and personal loans. And they've got over 25 lenders on their panel around Australia. Cindy McDougall is my co-host. In fact, she's probably the main host. I just sit here and every now and again chime in. Cindy, welcome. Good to have you with us once again.
Yeah, it's great to be back, Dan. I love it. It's amazing the length and breadth of talent that we've had on so far, and I very much look forward to today. Now, today, our talent. We welcome para swimmer and former able-bodied bodybuilder, Brooke Cotter. Brooke is a current multiple state record holder in para swimming for her classification. She is a proactive supporter of mental health awareness and also for making disability less scary through promoting opportunities and life experiences that she experiences post life-changing health issues. Brooke's amazing determination to do her best, be her best, and most of all, to experience life the best way that she can is an inspiration. Brooke and I have known each other for over 3 years, and we have an interesting backstory, Dan. I call Brooke my hysterectomy sister, as we had surgery within a couple of months of each other a few years ago, and we got to know each other via a Facebook support group. I was lucky to finally meet her in person last year, watching one of her competitions while I was up in Brisbane, after over 2 years of connecting online. And while my hysterectomy surgery and my health issues have largely resolved, and mine was a success, Brooke's post-op left her with a lifelong permanent disability. Because of this disability, Brooke's dream of becoming an able-bodied world-level bodybuilder was no longer a possibility, and she is now focusing on para swimming. In today's episode, we will talk about Brooke's pre-para journey, her health issues, and her permanent disability. We will speak about her mental health and how that has affected her life, her sport, and her everyday. We'll also chat about getting into the pool and pushing her body's abilities to the limit, and how this has seen Brooke become a state record holder and with an aim for the 2028 Paralympic spot, and how she hopes to represent Australia in the coming year. Welcome, Brooke.
Thanks for having me. And
it's so great to have you on.
Very long intro. You've obviously achieved a lot, Brooke. Can I just kick it off, Cindy? How proud are you of what you've achieved and where you've come from? Being a mental health sufferer myself, how tough has it been? And when you look back, you think, well, I've got to be proud of myself, even though I still might have dark days.
Yes, and it also does affect me sometimes when I'm at swimming comps, because on live TV, I do get announced, like even at the Paralympic trials I was at, I was announced as the oldest para swimmer at the meet.
How did that make you feel?
It's a little intimidating.
But, I mean, at the end of the day, are you thinking, oh, well, they think I'm the oldest, but that doesn't mean that I can't perform well? Did that make you more determined to go, well, it was basically a case of us against them mentality in some ways? I'll prove them wrong?
No, it's just showing that anything's possible if you put enough energy and effort into what you're trying to achieve.
100%. So, Brooke, let's get into your story a little bit. Your mobility disability came about quickly. You went from able-bodied and fit to fully using a wheelchair in only a few weeks. Can you give us a quick rundown of what happened and the impact that it had on your life?
Okay, so back in 2021, I had a number of operations due to cancer and stuff like that. And that's why I needed the hysterectomy. And due to pre-existing conditions that I've got of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and spina bifida, with how much anesthesia I had, it caused neurological issues. So it's caused like major issues with the disability side of it from what I used to be, because I lost my career from studying to be a registered nurse. I lost my independence with driving. My whole world just turned upside down because I had to relearn to live again in a normal way.
prior to your surgery, you were incredibly fit, you were confident, and you were actually an incredibly successful bodybuilder. It was a big passion of yours. With that, what led you to bodybuilding? Was it something that you'd been interested in growing up, or what sort of made you go, hey, I want to give this a try?
It was actually my doctor, my GP, that recommended that I get into weightlifting because of the Ehlers-Danlos loss. To reduce the amount of dislocations and that, we needed to build up my muscle strength to take the strain away from the joints so that it'll be better for my body. And also with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, you got a higher chance of developing osteoporosis, and weightlifting keeps the bone stronger. So that's the whole reason why I also got into the weightlifting.
That was a great motivation for you. What did the training look like? It must have been crazy for you to go from just, I guess, your everyday normal person into, okay, I'm going to get training and I'm going to be lifting these incredible weights and this is going to be my focus now. What did bodybuilding training look like?
5 days a week. It was 2 leg days, 3 upper days, like push-pull leg type workout. Sometimes it was a posterior workout with 2 legs, 2 upper, with the posterior added into it.
And how did you go, I guess, from being so incredibly fit and having such a mind focus, I guess, on getting your legs strong, getting your arms strong, to then not having the use of your legs? How did that make you feel? And did you ever consider a para pathway in bodybuilding?
So when I lost my ability to walk, it was really, really difficult because not only did I lose the mobility, but I was also watching my legs and the muscle and that disappear. And my legs were getting smaller. My legs weren't sitting the same. I was getting the cellulite popping up, and it's like I just wasn't impressed with how my legs and lower half was starting to look.
Very confronting.
Yeah.
But did you ever consider taking on para bodybuilding?
I did, but it wasn't until I got into the pool doing hydrotherapy that I found the love of being in the pool, because there was a sense of freedom from the wheelchair. So I just loved the way I was able to move about in the pool.
So that was what stood out for you. It gave you your freedom back. It gave you your ability. Yeah. How did it feel for you when you realised that, hey, this is something that I can now do and it's something that gives me back?
It was more that I could just get in the pool, swim laps, clear the head, have no one in my ear telling me what I can and can't do. It was just me and the pool, just swimming laps. And it just got movement through my body in a natural way, because it's a natural pain relief for me.
So it definitely does. One of my questions was going to be, how does that actually impact how your body, does it make it harder for your body? Does it make it better for your body? Is swimming something that with your conditions puts you on a better path physically, not just mentally?
It's more physically and mentally to help me, because physically it stops my body seizing up, it stops it from locking up, it keeps the movement through the spine. So when I'm swimming freestyle, it's almost like I'm walking because of the way the spine and that moves. When I'm swimming backstroke, I get a lot of movement through the hips, so it stops me from locking up.
And doing physical activity, and Brooke's our guest on Inclusion Talks, and she's a para swimmer, and we're here with Dan Lonigan and Cindy McDougall, and Aussie Home Loans is, of course, our major sponsor. We deal with anyone in Australia. They've got clients in every state and capital city. Did it help your mental health because you're doing some form of physical activity, and physical activity that was rewarding and helping you and making you get better, obviously, wasn't it?
Yes, it helped with the mental health because I was able to get in the pool away from everyone, and I could just swim the laps to sort my own headspace out. So I knew what the next steps forward for myself was with creating my own new life, with what the new me was becoming.
Did you have an inspiration that I guess pushed you in the pool? How did you start your journey, and how did you find your club? Was there someone that sort of went, hey, this is what you need to look at, this is where you need to go? Or was it something that you went, no, I'm going to find it and I'm going to do this myself?
No, it was at the time, he was my hydrotherapist at Body Smart, but it's now Higher Health is who I go through. which is now my exercise physiologist, which is Alex. And he was doing hydrotherapy with me. And he's like, you can swim, because at the time I was having to wear a flotation belt, but he's like, you can swim. Have you ever considered maybe taking up some type of local competitive swimming? And I'm like, no, not really. Where would I actually start? So he was the one that investigated it all, got it together. And I was actually doing hydrotherapy at Belgravia, where I actually train it. So it was through that way that we ended up getting me connected through the club that I was doing my hydrotherapy through.
So you mentioned Belgravia. Is that a para-specific club, or is it a mixed able and para club? How does the I guess the dynamics of that club look for you?
It's more able body. I'm the only para swimmer and the lowest class, like, at the club.
You do the same training as the able-bodied athletes. What does your training look like?
I normally swim between 4 to 5 days a week, between 3 and 5Ks, depending on the type of swim session I'm doing. But there is definitely no leg swimming drills in it for me. So it's all upper type of drills that keep, so we focus on just try and get the core, keep activated, the strokes, hand positioning and stuff like that.
So they make great adaptations to make you, give you the best chance at success. What inspires you to keep getting in the pool each day?
Pain.
Mental pain? Physical pain? Can you tell us about that? Wow. I'm interested.
If I don't swim, I end up with a lot of pain throughout my body because I can't move it around the way I used to. So it just gets that natural movement, and just the mental pain, like, it just keeps the head free.
It's a great source of freedom, both by the sound of it, for the muscles and for your mental health, which is just incredible. Centre, what do you think makes a good centre or a coach? If we were sort of talking to someone who was looking at starting out, what would you tell them that they should be looking out for? What do you think you would suggest to them to give them the best possible experience?
To investigate clubs that are around. Don't just jump straight into the first club, but to also look at what the coaches are like with the people they're training, how they interact with the swimmers and stuff like that. And if the coaches are willing to pick up on mistakes and pull them up of self-improvements.
This is Inclusion Talks, and our guest today is Brooke, who's a para swimmer and was a former bodybuilder. Great to have her with us for Aussie Home Loans, Dan Lonigan and Cindy McDougall for Inclusion Talks. And Aussie Home Loans have over 25 lenders on their panel. For yours, Cindy.
Explain your classification to our listeners. And as part of para swimming, can you explain how that works in your events?
Well, we race off a point system. So by memory, it's 1,000 points for world record. The further away you are from your world record, the less points you get. So we're all on the blocks together. So it could be from S1 all the way to S13. So when we're racing, it's not about who hits the wall first, because an S6 time is slower than what an S13 time is. So but once we finish the race, they'll add up the point system, and then that's how they do it.
So in your particular races, is it only physically impaired people? What is the scope of disabilities that you might compete against, whether it's at state level or national level?
It is between physical, intellectual, and vision impaired.
And what percentage is what, I guess, decides for our listeners who don't understand, that percentage is based on your time, and that's who decides, or what decides your placement in the rankings at the end of the race?
No, so with me being an S6 swimmer, I look at, say I'm entering the 50 freestyle, I would look at the 50 freestyle as an S6 world record, so I know what I've got to get to close to that world record as possible at that race.
So you've got such a fantastic level of determination, and you obviously are very, I guess, focused on getting the best out of your swimming career. How do you think, considering your health was so poor and post disability, again, you've had some health issues, what do you think it is that is in you that allows you to get to such a high level of competition?
Determination and drive.
You
Have you
believe
always-
that mindset is a major factor?
Yeah, definitely the mind and just the sense of, as I said, a lot of it's the sense of freedom as well, of being out the chair and just the challenge
Do you ever
of having
have
to push myself.
Sorry, Brooke, do you ever have times where you think, oh, I couldn't be bothered training today, or that never enters your psyche?
Yes, I do get times like that because I'm 38 years old and I'll get up in some mornings and it's like, oh my God, it is way too early and too cold to be doing this at my age. So yes.
38, I'm 55. Gee, you've still got a fair way to go. But look, I can understand that if you're wanting to get to LA in 2028. How confident are you can get there? I know that's 4 years down the track and a lot happens in life in 4 years, but knowing that the Olympics are on at the moment, and of course the Paralympics will follow not long after in Paris, how much is it inspiring you to make sure you get there or give yourself every chance to get there?
It is quite inspiring, but I'm just taking it as every step of the way and just trying to do the best I can to get there. So
now, can I ask you a question? This is a question out of left field. I can see on the screen your fingernails. Now, they're a colleague of mine, I did a podcast with him yesterday, Ricky Nixon, for the Chicken Coop, said, have you noticed, Dan, that how do these female swimmers get away with long fingernails? Does it help them touch the wall before other girls that may not have the long fingernails? I mean, have you heard any rubbish like that going around, Brooke? I mean, we've just had Molly O'Callaghan and Ariana Titmus involved in that outstanding race this morning, and Molly's beaten, as we speak, beaten Ariana to win that gold medal. I'm not sure that she won because she had the longer fingernails. Do you think it might help though?
yeah, no, but we're only allowed to have a certain length.
Certain length, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm guessing when you go into call room, they're checking those fingers. In athletics, they check the spikes and they check the shoes. In swimming, it's the fingers, Dan.
Yeah.
Love it. Now, Brooke, getting back to sport and life, you love hiking and getting out in the environment. How does disability impact that? And why hiking? It must be such an extremely hard thing to navigate in a wheelchair.
So thanks to the NDIS and my occupational therapist, I've managed to be able to acquire an off-road wheelchair so I can actually go hiking. So it's different to my everyday wheelchair.
How do you find that? Like, I'm assuming it would be quite difficult. So you've got an adapted chair. Is that made in a way to make it easier for you to be able to access areas that you might not be able?
Are we talking about the off-road chair here?
Yeah, certainly am.
Yes. So the front wheels are bigger, the rear wheels are fatter and wider. So it's a lot easier. So I'm not having to do lifting up my front wheels to go over stumps and stuff. I can just take the off-road one just straight over the top of it. I can go straight down gutters and just plonk it down.
Have you got a favourite hiking place? Have you got a place that you love more than anything else that just makes you better in regard to your mental health?
Oh, no, I just love going out and just finding different trail paths and just seeing if it's possible to do it.
Excellent. Well, Brooke is our guest today, and she, of course, is a para swimmer, and she's here for Inclusion Talks for our major sponsor, which is Aussie Home Loans. Areas of expertise include purchasing a property, owner-occupied or investment, building a property portfolio, first home buyers, equipment loans, car loans and personal loans. Can I just go back a step? You said before that at Belgravia, where you train, you're the only para swimmer. When you first went down there, how confronting was that? How long did it take you to get used to it, Brooke?
My coach didn't know that I was coming when I first showed up for my first squad session, and he thought he was going to have to fish me off the bottom of the pool.
Oh, I love it. Love it.
So how did you cope with that? I mean, and when he didn't have to fish you off the bottom of the pool, what do you think? I've got to keep her here.
At the time, I was only swimming 50 meters in a minute, and I was only able to do 1 or 2 laps at a time. Where now I can actually do 1K without stopping. So I've been a good learning experience for my coach, because he's never had a para swimmer, he's never had a wheelchair-bound person, and this has been like he's used it as a learning opportunity to advance his coaching knowledge.
How amazing is it that he was actually willing to go down that path? Because I would assume that it would have been incredibly confronting for him, and not having that knowledge base and to have to learn that from scratch. You know, a lot of coaches might sit there and go, yeah, I'm not sure I can do this. So the fact that he jumped on and had that willingness to learn and that willingness to adapt must have given you a great confidence in the fact that you had the right path and you had the right place.
Yes. And even to this day, because I started with him in 2022, I've done a one-on-one training session with him today, done some underwater video footage, and even when we self-assessed after it, I was still getting in trouble for doing stuff wrong.
He's still got work to do, and that's awesome, because that means that you.
There's still a lot of work and time we can take off, because there's a lot that I'm doing wrong with that underwater footage.
And the point is that you're still trying, which I think that's the best message for both the coach and for you, is that you've both got work to do, but there is still so much scope for a massive improvement. So although it must be really confronting to have your coach go, no, you're not doing this right, it must be such an incredible feeling to know that if you can get those things to click and you can get that training there, that, you know, you're already a record holder, but that's going to make you even faster again.
Yeah, it definitely will. But I also look at it, so it gives me more of an excuse and more of a push to get back in the pool, because I know there's a lot of improvement that I need to be working on. And what areas I've got to work on.
Sorry, Brooke. Is he inspiring you? I mean, well, when I say is he inspiring, I'm sure he is. But as a coach, how constructive is the criticism? Or is he one of these coaches that every now and again you might need a bit of a kick up the, you know what? Or is he always positive, making you want to get better, making you want to get better?
I get a kick up the butt a few times, but he's usually really motivating, but he does push me, which is what I've asked. I did ask him to pull me up on stuff, push me. Said that's what I'm here for. I want to try and make it as far as I can, and that's agreement between the two of us.
I think that's something, Dan, that I've always held in such high regard with Brooke, is her determination to make herself better. So even when a lot of people would just shut down and say, this is too hard, I can't do this anymore, you know, I've got all this in front of me, I've got all these barriers, I've got all of these things that are cropping up just to try and tell me that I can't, she just goes, no, bugger this, I'm going to actually use this and I'm going to make myself better because of it. And it's something that actually inspires me quite a lot with Brooke. And we do have the occasional conversation. She'll give me a ring up and she's feeling a bit flat, and by the end of it she's always saying, no, I'm going to do this, I'm going to smash this, and it's so good, because it just shows her quality of her, I guess, her nature, in that even when things are really, really bad, she can go, you know what, I know that I'm good enough to do this, I know in me I have this ability, I'm going to pick myself up and I'm going to do it. So on that, Brooke, you've moved up in the rankings pretty quickly and you're hoping to make your international debut next year. Can you let our listeners know a little bit about that? What is, I guess, coming up for you?
I've got to get reclassified next year. And by the looks of it, they're going to be classifying me to become an international swimmer. There will be, so it looks like I'll be getting that international marking against my name instead of Queen, like an national swimmer. But I haven't looked at the full chart yet of what's going to be the outline to try and qualify for Singapore, but there might be a few international events, or I don't know what the grounds are going to be for the World Para Championships next year.
So for our listeners and for you, Dan, classification in quite a few of the different sports, but definitely athletics and swimming, works in a way that you can get it's almost like a provisional classification. It's not, but it's I guess that's what I'll term it right now. And that allows you to go up to national level. But if you actually want to compete on the international stage and compete overseas or make it to Paralympic level, you actually have to be, I guess, more complex in the way that they classify you. So they will actually bring in people that are trained in disability and are trained in, I guess, assessing your capabilities. And you have to front that panel, and they look at your diagnostics in your diagnoses on paper, but they also look at you actually swim or run, and they go, okay, this person actually can't do this, or they tire at a certain point, or one side of their body doesn't work as well. You know, their paperwork is showing that it's both sides. Hold on, one side's actually working better. So they actually assess you, and you could start at one classification, and by the end of your, you know, review or your international classification, you could actually slip into either a higher or a lower ranking for classification. But it allows you to then compete internationally. And once you've got that classification, definitely in athletics, I'm not as certain around swimming, but it can actually alter what events are available to you. So
yes, it is true.
International classification must, for you, Brooke, I guess, have you thinking, wow, this is going to open up so many doors. But it also must be a little bit scary. And, you know, I've got to get assessed, and they've got to look at this. And you know, I know that I'm like this, but are they going to see it this way? How, for you, does classification look? Like, are you excited? Are you scared? Is it something that I guess you put a lot of time into, or is it just something you go, you know what, I'm going to get internationally classified, so be it?
So Swim Australia, or yes, Swim Queensland actually is who's classified me, but I'm registered as a swimming national. But all they've asked, I need further documentation reporting my disability to be able to progress forward to go internationally.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I've got all that documentation now.
So
that is fantastic.
How confident, and Brooke is our guest here for Aussie Home Loans for Inclusion Talks with Dan Lonigan and Cindy McDougall. Now, how confident are both of you in regard to the process when you are being categorised for the disability? I mean, is it a consistent process, or is there work to be done, not only in the athletic space or swimming space, but right across the board? Or do you think we've got it down pat now?
I think it's pretty much down pat now, because it's medical documentation from doctors, it's physio reports, it's swimming assessments we've done in the pool. Like, there's a fair bit around with what is done, so everyone's graded equally.
Look, I know,
and put into the right classification for them.
I know from my point of view, it's become a lot more rigid in the last few years. And generally, if you've got classifiers, I know in the case of athletics, when there's a classification session, it isn't just classifiers that have been trained in Australia. You might have a classifier from Spain. You might have a classifier from France. You know, they are very pinpoint on making sure that the people who are there know how to do their job, know what to look for, and make sure that they're getting it right. Because as our listeners, we've mentioned it before, and as Dan and I'm not sure about Brooke, but Dan definitely is aware, there was an issue at the 2000, I think it was the 2000 Olympics, where it was actually found out that some athletes had been classified intellectually disabled, but they'd actually been, as part of their program, misdiagnosed to allow them to actually compete. And that was why a lot of intellectually disabled athletes lost their rights to compete at Paralympics. So before, they used to do like 100, 200 long jump, shot put. They had a lot of opportunity to compete at Paralympics. And because of that, they went down to 4 events. And so I think in light of that, things got a lot more stricter, and they were a lot more careful. And I think that has removed a lot of the doubt. I know with athletics, they have to sit, even for national classification, they get provisional, review, confirmed. So they're actually sitting 2 tests to then go up to international classification. So it isn't subjective. It's very hard to get that classification.
Yeah. Because I originally started off as an S7.
Yeah.
As a state swimmer. Then after my first lot of competitions that I'd done in 2022, it was put forward that I wasn't what I was supposed to be. They got me in to get reclassified, and I got dropped to an S6 and was made an national swimmer.
And excuse my ignorance, going from S7 to S6, does that mean that you your disability is seen as less or is seen as more, for want of a better expression? And I apologise to everyone if I haven't quite got that expression right, but I think you know what I'm trying to say here. So do you...
The lower the number, the more physically it is.
Right, okay. So how did you feel?
So the less mobility.
Right, okay. So
I felt like it was the right classification for me, where at the S7 I knew it wasn't correct at the time. But it was my first time swimming, and I think it could have had a lot to do with my age.
yeah.
And they were trying to push me to go into master swimming as well.
So how did you know, Brooke, that it wasn't the right classification for you at the time?
Because I've got mobility issues, from pretty much the belly button down, and S7s have a little bit of the leg movements. They can stand on the blocks with assistant, a little bit and stuff like that. Most of them can do a bit of kicking through the water. I don't have any of that. So I sit on the blocks when I dive with my feet on the backstroke start bar.
Now,
Bit of a funny story, Dan.
Yes.
I'll get Brooke on this one. She'll probably kill me for including this on the podcast. But at her first event, she actually got onto the blocks and did her start. And she sends me a message afterwards, and she goes, "I completely stuffed that up. I didn't know how to do it. And it looked so silly, and I don't know what to do." And she actually had to go back, and it was somebody else at the event that actually, I think, pointed out to her, "Hey, you don't have to do it like that. You can do it like this." So it's a big learning thing, and that comes down to that classification and the understanding of how the body works. And there were some things that Brooke just could not do that, in hindsight, probably looked horrendous, but was actually because of her disability and understanding how her body needed to work on those blocks.
And how did you feel about that, Brooke? I mean, obviously, your first time, you do feel embarrassed, don't you? And I presume everyone around you would have been great support, saying it's your first time.
It is, but it is still quite embarrassing when you're out there. You're in the wheelchair and then you're transferring to sit on the block, and you look so different out on those blocks compared to everyone else, especially at my first event, because I was up against able-bodied swimmers.
Right.
Because I was only getting base numbers of where my swimming times were at for my first comp.
Brooke, a star para swimmer, is our guest today on Inclusion Talks with Dan Lonigan and Cindy McDougall for Aussie Home Loans. They deal with anyone in Australia. They've got clients in every state and capital city. They do Zoom as well. You can say no comment to this question. Can I go right back to the very early start of our chat today, when your disability was caused, you say, by the operation to do with your hysterectomy and obviously the anaesthetic? Has anything happened regarding that? Have you done anything? Do you feel slighted by what happened there? I mean, obviously that's a pretty hard pill to swallow for you, isn't it?
It does get to me. It is upsetting with everything that's happened, how much my life's changed. But the way I look at it, I'm cancer-free. I'm able to live my life. So I've got an extended life period anyway. And even though I lost my career as a registered nurse because of becoming wheelchair bound, I'm now studying to become a personal trainer.
Right. And how's that going?
Opportunities.
I'll let you know, because I've only started over the last couple of months.
Right. Okay. Well, that's good. Excellent. Very, very happy for you. That's fantastic.
Onto it, Brooke, has there been a particular swimmer that has helped support your journey? I know that we've had talks about this, but I'd love for our listeners and for Dan as well to understand that there has been a really great swimmer who's been a brilliant support to you. And I'm sort of hoping she might come on the podcast later on in our episodes. But can you explain to us just how much that support meant and who that person was?
The support has been really good, because it made me feel like I wasn't the only person at comps in a wheelchair. I felt like I was welcomed because she was really friendly to me from the start. Her name's actually Rachel Watson, and she's actually heading off to Paris herself as an S3 swimmer for the 100 free and 50 free.
She's been fantastic, Dan. I know it's some of Brooke's darker days. She's been the person that's sort of gone, hey, hold on, you know, this is what you can do. This is how you can build yourself up. And I think that is such a point of reference for her character as well, in that this is a woman who's qualified for Paralympics, but she's still there supporting and mentoring because she can understand how hard that journey can be.
So S3 means less mobility again, Brooke, excuse my ignorance?
Yeah, less.
Right.
So is S3 the I guess the highest level of disability classification in your classification? S1. Yep. Wow. So she's sort of middle of the road, I guess you'd call that?
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
But she's classed as one of, like, I'm mid-class, she's low class.
Right. So for our listeners,
go on, Cindy. I was just going to say, how much mobility has she got? Obviously, not a great deal.
Not a great deal, no. So no leg, no core. She only swims with her arms, weakened hands. So I'm not going to go too much into it, but that's just the basics for her classification.
That's incredible.
I mean, it is. I admire you all because, I mean, I'm an able-bodied person who doesn't have any ability in sport. I like to run a bit, but to have your arms and legs is just a normal part of life. But for those people that don't have access to every limb and can't do what we can do that we just think is natural, and then they're performing at an elite sport such as the Paralympics, full credit to everyone. Even if they're not winning medals, who cares? As long as they're there having a go, and they deserve all the credit and all the praise that they're getting. I just think it's so inspirational.
Perfect lead in for my next question, Dan. Mm-hmm. Do you think para swimming has grown since you began your journey, Brooke?
Yes, I feel it has, definitely.
Tell us about your records. What records do you currently have? And do you think you are going to get better, which I know you're going to, but I'm interested to hear your response. Do you think you've even got the capacities to set some new ones in the next little while?
Okay, so I hold the 50-metre freestyle and the 50-metre backstroke Queensland records. As my coach today worked out, I average 25 metres at 22 seconds consistently.
Good.
So when I'm at races, we just need to get me in a race technique. So we've been fiddling around with how I race and stuff like that. My 100-metre freestyle is at 1:30. So 24 seconds by 4 would be, 1:27?
Got that? Yep. Wow.
So we're slowly chipping away and slowly figuring out what times I need to be sitting at for what laps and stuff like that. Because over the next 12 months, I'm going to be entering more events. So I'm looking at the 200-metre freestyle, the 400-metre freestyle, as well as possibly the 50 breaststroke as well.
Wow. And so I'm assuming that had come down to, you were talking about your technique. So would that alter the training if you're doing different events? Do you train differently or do you focus on the same thing?
Same thing.
Wow, that's amazing. You would think it would
be technique, the cardio, everything's there. It's just the technique with getting the arms position in and everything just better and stronger.
So, Brooke, does your coach, and we're here for podcast inclusions, Aussie Home Loans, we've got 25 lenders on our panel. Does your coach say to you, Brooke, okay, today we're going to swim at this level and you've got to try and beat this time, and then maybe next week or 2 weeks later you've got to beat that time, and then you've got to beat that time? Is it over a few-week period or a month period in regard to different times or better times that are set for you, the more experience you gain in your training?
He will turn around and goes, okay, what's your PB for this event? And I'll tell him, he goes, all right, well, you've got to hit it at this time. So we're trying to just push the body more and more. So we're working off my PBs.
Okay.
On that one, Brooke, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
Swimming still.
What about a personal goal?
Hopefully the Paralympic trials again, and maybe if things go to plan, I can qualify through, and my own business as a personal trainer.
I want to touch on your personal life a little bit, and that's why I led in this way. You're a big promoter of fun and freedom in disability. I've noticed people commenting on your social media posts that it's refreshing to see someone young and active in a wheelchair, going to concerts and competitions and engaging in everything possible. What for you is the best part about getting out and about in the community, and what challenges do you find in that?
I honestly don't feel there's many challenges. It's just more being accepted to yourself, and just letting go and just being able to enjoy yourself and everything that's going on.
Brooke's a bit of a rager, Dan. I've seen her posts and it is so awesome. She gets to concerts and she gets out to all sorts of events. And I just think it is an incredible thing for her, because a few years ago, as we've talked about her mental health, it wasn't great. She didn't like going out and it was very hard for her. And I just love seeing the positivity in her social media posts from a personal front. You know, you see the sports stuff and you see the competition stuff, but I think as a friend it is so awesome seeing her getting out and about and regaining herself and regaining that confidence and having that, I guess, freedom, where some people might find it quite hard, and it is confronting for some able-bodied people, and as Brooke said, you know, some people aren't as accepting. I think that her positivity on her social media posts is great. Do you think that getting disability out there on social media, in the general media, you know, the coverage of the Paralympics, the coverage of sport, is actually helping people accept physical and I guess even mental disabilities as the norm?
I feel it's starting to become that way, yes. And when I ended up in the wheelchair, like, I found a whole heap of people that I've started following on Instagram that helped me get through it and helped me find some type of pathway with my swimming and weightlifting. And I was reaching out to the world's strongest disabled man.
Really?
And he was giving me weightlifting advice with how to work out being wheelchair bound and stuff like that. Then there's also Tully, that she helped me with the tumble turns with when I was first learning how to tumble turn in the pool.
Do you think for a
So she's an
para-athlete-
international, pardon?
No, sorry to butt in, Brooke. Do you think that that support has been the most important thing for you? And definitely from a sports perspective, having people that you didn't expect being a support for you is actually a driving force for you?
Yes, most definitely, because we're not in this alone. We're there supporting each other through different times. And that's what it's about, is just finding people you can connect with to get through life.
If you could give a message to a person who was facing a new or unexpected disability, or who was scared of losing connection with sport or their life in general, what message would you give them to get them through?
It's not the end of the world. That you will end up finding something new to grow from.
Social media, Brooke, has its pros and cons. You've obviously turned it into a pro in regard to your mental health situation. When you do post things, do you get a bit concerned every now and again that there might be trolls out there that might be negative? And if you do get the occasional negative post, how do you deal with that?
I've never had it.
Oh, isn't that great?
Awesome.
Or if there is a negative comment or anything, sometimes depending on how bad it is, you just delete it.
I think that's a really important thing, Dan, is that there are always going to be people who can find negatives and who will try to bring you down, especially when you start getting up in the ranks of whatever sport you choose with a disability. I think it's human nature in some people and some sectors to try to find a way to bring you down. And I think it is how your mindset is. And again, Brooke's shown that positive mindset is huge. It is very much a thing of, there's been a big thing lately, I guess it's something to lead into in a lot of the media of let them, that people have their own ideas about you and their own views about you and your disabilities and your negatives and your positives and who you are. It's about being able to get to a point where you go, you know what, let them think what they like. I'm not going to let it impact me.
No, it's fair enough. But I mean, it can be hard though, particularly when you're having a tough day, Brooke, mentally, that there are comments out there that you think, oh, gee, I don't like that. And you can get a bit impulsive. But if you haven't had many, I mean, I just find that outstanding and full credit to you. Obviously, your messages that you're putting across are resonating with the public in a positive way. And that's exactly what we want. Well done.
Yeah. Thank you.
One last question. If you could give your youngest self an insight into your journey and maybe some hints and tips for going forward, what would you say to her?
Don't give up and keep fighting.
Pretty basic and simple, isn't it?
Perfect.
Now, one more from me. Obviously, there's a long way to go. You'd love to get to LA in 2028. And if you get to LA in 2028 in the Paralympics, you'd love to get to Brisbane.
As if I'm not too old.
Oh, you won't be too old at all.
Never too old.
Never too old. Look at Andrew Hoy, 61. He was hoping to go to the Olympic Games in the equestrian, and he's missed 2 as well. He could have gone to 10. He's 61. He was hoping to go. There's a couple of shooters in their 50s. You're never too old.
Oh, look, we've got Maz Strong representing at the Paralympics, and she's very vocal about being the oldest one on the athletics team, and she's just smashing her goals left, right, and centre. So I reckon if anyone could do it, Brooke, you could.
We'll see.
How old's Maz?
I would be working off the top of my memory, but I think she is mid to late 40s.
Good on her. That's great.
And just smashing world records and smashing goals, and she's had some battles in her journey as well. And I'm hoping to get her on one of the later episodes because she is preparing to head over to Paris. But I think it really does prove that I'm looking at Brooke smiling at me here as if to say, what have you got me into? But I truly believe if anybody could do it, and we're only looking at 8 years.
Correct.
I reckon if anyone could do it, it'll be Brooke.
And I mean, the thing is, it's a home Olympic Games too, Brooke, or Paralympic Games. I mean, how good is it going to be? I know there's been a bit of negativity about stadiums. I think that'll eventually work itself out. But Sydney did a great job. We know Melbourne did a good job of the Com Games in 2006. So I think Australia just do sporting events well. So if you could still be competing, it'd be a great achievement, wouldn't it? A great highlight.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent.
I've got to say, Dan, how amazing is Brooke? How good is her mindset? I was really thrilled that she actually was willing to come on because she was a little bit hesitant at joining us initially. And, I think her journey is an inspiration and can be an inspiration to so many others.
Absolutely. Well, Brooke, we thank you very much for joining us. We wish you all the best in your quest, in your magnificent swimming career and your quest to eventually become a Paralympian. And I'm sure with your drive, your determination, that you will get there, your skill and your talent. And we thank you very much for joining us on Inclusion Talks, our podcast. Thanks to Aussie Home Loans, who deal with anyone in Australia. They've got clients in every state and capital city. They do Zoom as well, which is how we conduct most of our interviews, whether it be Inclusion Talks or Dashing Down to Olympic Adventures. And you can get all our podcasts on the various social media platforms such as Spotify. And the areas of expertise for Aussie Home Loans include purchasing a property, owner-occupied or investment, building a property portfolio, refinancing, debt consolidation, cash out, construction, pre-approvals, first home buyers, and any sort of loans, equipment loans, car loans, personal loans, sporting loans. And they've got over 25 lenders on their panel. As usual, Cindy, absolutely sensational guest. You do a great job with them.
They are the superstars, that's for sure, Dan. But it's been just amazing to have another episode done with such a fantastic sports person.
Thanks, Brooke. Appreciate you joining us on Inclusion
Thanks
Talk.
for having me.